get started. Well, welcome everyone. I think we may still have a few people joining us this afternoon to our session, Creating Engagement in the Virtual Classroom. We've been getting to know one another a little bit so far in the chat, telling us where you're from, what area you're a part of, and most importantly, what your idea of paradise is. So if you're just joining us, we'd still love to hear from you what you think your idea of paradise is. A couple of things before we again jump back in. I would invite you to turn your camera on if you can and are able. I'd love to be able to see your faces. I can see all your names, but love to have that interactive component if you can. Make sure to eliminate distractions. I put my phones on silent, turned off my email while we're in our session. And then this will be an interactive and immersive session. So you will be able to come off mic here and there just when you're not speaking, a gentle reminder to keep that mic muted. Now, I want to get to know who's in our session a little bit further. I've already seen some amazing responses in regards to what you think paradise is, but let's go a little deeper into who is in our session this afternoon. So I'm going to pull up a map on your screen. You've got a map of the United States, and if you hover over your toolbar, you're going to look for the annotate option. When you click on the annotate option, you're going to see a stamp option. So what I'd like you to do is, using the star stamp, indicate on the map where you were born. And if for some reason you're not able to access your annotation tools, then go ahead and drop a note in the chat about where you were born. All right, let's see here. Felicia is from Ohio. Okay, so we have a couple people from Ohio, North Carolina. I see Amanda has circled Maine. Wonderful. Yes, Melissa, if you don't have annotation, it could be the browser. So I'm glad. Okay, another one from North Carolina, and Harriet from South Carolina, and Randy from Pennsylvania. Goodness, we're keeping it all on the East Coast today. And Whitney's and Elaine from South Carolina. Okay, great. And I will put my star from Michigan. Okay, we're moving a little further out with Sarah. Wonderful. Okay. Well, we've got mostly Easterners, let's say here. Now let me clear these annotations, and we're actually going to move to the next slide. If you were not born in the United States, that's okay. You can use the next slide. But on this next slide, again, you're going to use your annotation tools if you have access to them. And what I'd like for you to indicate on here, using the check mark stamp, if you can find it, is where you would most like to visit. Where would you most like to visit? I see Drew has chosen somewhere in Saudi Arabia, perhaps. Oh no, Sri Lanka. I see Sri Lanka has been chosen.
Israel.
Israel. Okay. Yes. Great. Thank you, Drew. And Angela, it looks like, chose India. All right. And Amanda chose Australia. Oh, we have some for Ireland. Very nice. And some, okay. Good. I see we're all kind of venturing further towards the Middle East or European countries. I love it. Good. Italy. I think Susan, that was Susan indicating Italy. And we have some coming in the chat as well. Let's see here. Sarah would like to go to Iceland. Ruth, Greece. New Zealand. Oh, Melissa, the UK, excellent choice. That's probably my favorite place to visit. See, what else do we have here? Elaine in Italy, Harriet in Fiji. That sounds nice about now. And Elaine in Egypt. All right, let's see here. Oh yes, people are liking the Fiji option as well. Well, great. What I love about this is just kind of lets us get to know each other a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and disable our annotations for now. We won't need them. And let me just kind of introduce you to our session this afternoon. Again, I want to welcome you. I know we've had some additional people joining us, and we're focused on creating engagement in the virtual classroom. My name is Rachel Cobb. I am the Training and Development Director focused on faculty development in our Center for Professional Excellence here at Greenville Technical College. And I'm sure, like many of you, over a year ago, our workplace shifted dramatically. Instead of driving to work each morning, walking in the door, greeting each of my coworkers, walking into my office, getting settled, starting my kettle for tea, I found myself walking down the stairs, turning my laptop on at the dining room table and proceeding to begin my workday by just checking my email. Those days of working at home were incredibly long, quiet days. And don't get me wrong, even though I'm an introvert, so that sounds like a bit of paradise for me, I really did miss the frequent interaction, the banter, the collaboration that came in our office suite on a normal workday. And I know that with the shift, all work teams, instructors were scrambling to figure out, how do we adjust? How do we adapt? And how do we find the answer to that challenge of communication and keeping productivity flowing? And of course, virtual meetings were kind of always there in the background, but all of a sudden they took on the spotlight. And for us at Greenville Tech, that specifically was Zoom, which will be kind of the focus today. As we adapted quickly to our new working environment, we began to utilize Zoom. That was the platform Greenville Tech chose. And we used that to meet and collaborate. And our director, Susan, set up a recurring meeting. And so we met every day at 9 a.m. just to check in, to talk about work. And that added a new sense of normalcy and routine, part of which we were missing because we weren't in the office every day, that we really looked forward to. And of course, it also included more casual conversation that we would have throughout the day if we were in the office together, and that familiar office banter came back. Now, that was my first introduction to Zoom. I had definitely experienced virtual meeting platforms before, but never really had a cause to use them in any great length. And so we were introduced to Zoom, and all of a sudden we were using it every day. And as we continue to seek out ways to continue to provide professional development and keep projects moving forward, Zoom was the answer. And I loved Zoom for some reason. I thought it was fascinating. So I just kind of dug in and explored. And the more I learned about Zoom, the more I found that some of those elements that we seek to create in our face-to-face environments could be done in the virtual meeting platform. It was not going to ever be the exact same, but we could achieve similar sense of atmosphere with some of the tools and techniques available. Whether it was a workshop, whether it was a committee meeting, a class teaching students, or even just a simple conversation. So as you may have seen already, I've placed you in an immersive experience here in Zoom. And so today we're focusing on moving beyond just the basic meeting experience to really explore the different ways to create engagement within a virtual meeting platform. Our focus is Zoom because that's what we're in today. However, I think you'll find that a lot across the board, a lot of the meeting platforms now have some of the same tools, and some of the techniques we're going to explore can also be utilized within those platforms. It may just look a little different depending on which virtual meeting platform you're utilizing. So again, we're going to continue to explore those things through an immersive experience, which means as we go along, I want you to just take note of what you're experiencing. And once we get a little bit further towards the end, we'll take some time for some reflection and some applications so that you can think about all that I have just kind of put you through and determine some takeaways for that. So we'll draw some applications there at the end. So let's just keep going, and there will be a lot of different things we'll be doing. So again, I encourage you to just jump right in and participate with me. And again, I'll give you some time to think about some takeaways towards the end. I promise I'll give you a little bit of time to reflect. So as we continue, I am going to launch a poll. And I'm interested to see in what ways or for what purposes have you or are you currently using virtual meeting platforms? That could be Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx. There are so many, I couldn't even list them here. And on this poll, you can select as many answers as apply to you on this. So I'll give a few moments here. And again, if you have a browser issue or you don't have the poll pop up, feel free to put your comments in the chat as well. All right, so we've got some good responses coming in here. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds to let you select your options, and then we'll take a look and see what we had. We'll do about 5 more seconds before I end the poll, and we'll close that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's take a look at our results here. And it looks like we have a large percentage who are teaching classes using the virtual meeting platforms, as I anticipated. Another large percentage using them for quick meetings or phone calls. Those actually have been very handy. So some who do regular workshops as well. And actually, other response. Okay, if you put other, would you either unmute and tell us or put in the chat what you have used your virtual meeting platform for? I've assumed there were numerous uses that I may not have thought of.
So this is not academics related, but one of my friends from college lives in Florida, and we really had missed having movie nights or getting together. So we use Zoom and we share screens to have sort of a virtual movie night.
Oh, I like that. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. Yes, that's great. I see coming in from the chat from several people here, from Randy and Mary and Elaine, and Felicia. They're used that for office hours, another great tool. And let's see, Melissa said she's used it for advising. Oh, and I love this, a family holiday gift exchange virtually. That is great. And what you're seeing already are some of the creative ways people are finding to use the virtual platforms. Patricia, yes, recording videos. I was just thinking about that. I've used Zoom on several occasions to record tutorial videos and other elements that very easily then load to YouTube. Or yes, Sarah recording lectures. Great. Well, It's obvious then, and we'll take that off your screen, that this has become the new norm, and we have started to embrace it and figure out how to use it creatively beyond just what we see is available to us. And as wonderful as virtual meeting platforms are and technology is, because it gives us opportunity and allows us to create a sense of continuity in our jobs with our students, technology does also bring with it many challenges, and I am sure you have experienced quite a few challenges along the way, perhaps even something a little similar to this experience. Take a look.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here on time. Paul? Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Tyler.
Sorry I'm late. Having a hard time connecting.
1 second. Paul's having sound issue.
I can't hear you. Try adjusting your output settings.
Can you hear me?
It's the gear icon.
Tyler, are you on hotel Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Never mind, I got it. I just had to change a few settings.
Great. Maybe we can get started then. Oh, great.
I think your mic is pushing up your speakers.
My mic?
Do you have headphones?
You want me to put them on?
No, I want you to smell them. No, I want you to put them on.
Sounds like someone just joined.
Hey guys, it's John. Have I missed anything yet?
No, it would have been nice for you to join the rest of us, but we'll see you when you get home. Tyler, do you have that financial report?
Well, it's been the last few weeks updating our books, and I got some great news for you. Schedule from this point last year. We had a great Q1. Am I frozen?
Hey, Trip, I think we lost Tyler.
Yeah, I know, we lost Tyler.
Hey guys, it sounded like Tyler was cutting out.
We know, John. All right, while we wait on Tyler, why don't we go over the... Okay, everyone, I know some of you have to leave soon, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the queries before. Okay, excuse me. My wife's out of town this week. Daddy's, I'm so sorry. Okay, you just spilt grape juice on the carpet. Daddy is in a meeting. Let's reschedule and let's just do a regular old conference call, okay? Paul, can you have David send out the 9-digit passcode?
I heard you.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later.
All right. Anybody relate to anything at all? I see heads nodding. I see some smiles there. I'm sure we have each encountered one or more of those. I think Whitney and I were both experiencing that before the session started with Whitney's microphone. So that has become the common occurrence. What I want to do here for a moment is do a little bit of brainstorming. So I want to give you a second to think about what the biggest challenge is that you have faced with virtual meetings. So just take a moment and think about that. And then I'm going to pull up the whiteboard and we're going to create a list of those biggest challenges. So I'm going to allow you to come off mic and share those challenges, but I'll give you a moment to think your biggest challenge with virtual meetings. I know there have probably been many challenges, but you got to pick the biggest challenge, So I'll give you a moment. And I'm going to create a list as we go. So I'm going to invite you to come off mic and share with us your biggest challenge. So when you come off mic, I may not be able to see everyone. If you'll tell us your name and then your biggest challenge. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hey, Rachel, it's Felicia. So this is not really like a technical thing, but it's something that's reoccurring, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Is when sometimes cameras being on is not the best thing, because I've had students wear questionable outfits. Let me just lead with that. some people have even fallen asleep when they're in there. Like they'll just have the thing popped up on their bed and they'll be sleeping. So my biggest challenge is, because I wear my emotions on my face, is to not let them know when I'm, thinking, because sometimes it's like, yes, we are not in a classroom, but you don't wear pajamas, or people won't have shirts on, or it's what I see as a challenge. Yes, for
Yes.
sure.
Great. Excellent, Felicia. All right. We've got that on our list for sure. Who else?
This is just to piggyback on what she said. Sometimes students will have bandwidth issues, and more cameras on makes them less likely to be able to see and hear what they need to see and hear. So I've had classes where people would have to turn the cameras off for everyone to be able to function.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Great. Thank you, Melissa. All right. Who else?
So I have encountered a lot of students getting distracted by things that they wouldn't be if they were in the classroom, like kind of piggybacking off the idea of like children coming in, or pets, or I've had someone, all of a sudden the police were in their neighborhood and the sirens were just everywhere. And I've learned a lot about my students, in some cases a little more than I feel like I necessarily needed to know.
Yes. Thank you, Amanda. Good. What are some other big challenges you have encountered?
I think one of my largest challenge was the poor quality of service for Zoom, depending on the area and the internet service that's provided is freezing, or they will drop from the meeting completely. And they may be in the middle of delivering some important information, but because of the poor quality of the internet that they're using, that's a major issue too.
Yes. Good. Thank you, Wanda. Anyone else? Other big challenges you faced?
For me, the technology gap and the inequality of that has been very much highlighted. And it's really difficult for me when you see students that really want to be involved, and they could probably get a bus to campus, but they may not have transportation, and they may not have their own computer, and they're trying to Zoom on their phone. And you can't imagine, they're using their phones for everything, so they're getting text messages left and right.
Yes.
And I can't imagine being on my phone. I mean, it's annoying when I'm texting one person, and I'm old, I'm texting one person and I get another text that comes in. That's annoying, let alone trying to do a Zoom meeting, let alone having poor bandwidth, all those different things. And then with different areas of the city, because I teach in different campuses and different locations, when you get people in very rural areas with bad internet, or people who internet goes out, stuff like that, that technology inequality, technology gap issue that's been one of the more frustrating things for me, for sure.
Yes, definitely. Great, thank you.
For me, it has been trying to maintain their attention while I compete with all of the things that are in their environment, such as the telephone, their cell phones in particular. Even though I try to vary what I do and only lecture for 15 to 20 minutes and then do something else, during that 15 or 20 minutes, that's when they zone out and are doing other things.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you, Elaine. Yes, I know what you're saying. Any others? These are great.
This one might be,
go ahead, Melissa.
I was going to say, it might be different if I might be the only math teacher in the session, but I use a document camera to make it where they can see what I'm writing as I work out the problems very well. And the best way for that document camera to broadcast out is through screen share. This presents a problem for me because it limits my ability to do polls, things of that nature, where I might not want everyone to see how people responded, but I want to see how people respond. So I can't protect their privacy if I use some of the tools and if I also make it where they can see the content delivery the way it needs to be. So I've struggled there.
Yeah, so protecting.
I have two computers open, but I can't, even if I use virtual classroom inside D2L. And so I don't have the ability to be a host logged in twice. I log in twice so I can see what's happening in the chat while I screen share, but it's a limitation of the programs that I've found.
Yeah, definitely. And Angela, was that? Thank you,
Yeah,
Melissa. Angela, go ahead.
and I'm piggybacking on Melissa there, being an accounting instructor. I am a kindred spirit with the math teachers. Going virtual all of a sudden in March, having been new to academia, I was expecting a very corporate type response where there would be immediate training for everybody. There would be immediate investment in all the tools necessary. And I pretty much felt, and it might be the wrong word, but unsupported was the word. I know we were all doing the best that we could, but nobody said the word Wacom tablet to me until I was in a session with one of the STEM guys, and he just whipped out his Wacom tablet. And I'm like, holy crap, every accounting instructor needs one of those. How do I get one? Where's the money coming from? How do we train the chalk and talk people to use Zoom? Personal, headsets and where to get. And I just expected there to be like, basic training. They would just issue everybody exactly, here's the DVD on how to use Zoom. Here's your account. Here's your Wacom tablet. Here's this, here's that. And it wasn't like that at all.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like if we knew ahead of time, we would have planned for it so much differently than the way it actually came to pass. So I'm sure other teachers felt unsupported once we all got sent home. We still had a lot of rules that said, well, you got to have a wet signature on this document. What? Students can't withdraw unless they come fill out this form on campus. It's like, well, that's not going to happen. So there were a lot of things about going virtual that I just felt we kind of played along until it got to critical mass, and then we had to do something to change.
Yes, I think we definitely, I don't think anyone anticipated something like this, and it was everybody jump in the deep end and figure it out till somebody really figures it out and then can kind of guide the way. These are some great examples, and what I would like to do with this, and I see we had some come in the chat as well. Good. I see we have some additional conversation going on in the chat.
Yes, I was going to mention that not the actual working with it, but recording of not being able to see what's actually being recorded. And so there have been a couple of times when I've reviewed my recording and I'm not actually showing the PowerPoint, or I didn't flip back my screen from the video. So now I'm just talking with a blank screen.
Oh,
so
no.
Not seeing what the participants see from the host side is rather annoying.
Yes.
That's why I always have two connections, one as a presenter and one as a participant. I always log on twice.
That's a fantastic idea.
That is. Oh, and you're jumping ahead of me here, but that's great, because what I'd like for us to do is with all of these challenges that we're talking about, and you're already starting to give each other ideas of how to practical solutions to some of these challenges. What we're going to do, I am going to break you into breakout rooms. There'll be about 4 to 5 people per breakout room, and I'm going to give you about 5 to 7 minutes. Each room, I'm going to assign a specific challenge, and I'd like you to come up with at least one practical solution that you could recommend to help with that challenge. So as you discuss in your breakout groups, then select someone in your breakout group to be your group representative. Because when you come back, we're going to have each group representative share your solution to the challenge that you were assigned. So let me tell you who's in each room and what your assigned challenge is before I break you into those groups. So room 1 is going to have Felicia, Melissa Collins, Tara Johnson, Whitney Axum, and Wanda. You're all in room 1. And I am going to let you discuss the challenge of the distractions that come when people have their cameras on, such as the clothing they're wearing, falling asleep on camera, or the other things that they may be doing that cause a distraction. So that is room 1, Felicia, Melissa, Tara, Whitney, and Wanda. And you're going to brainstorm a solution for the distractions that come from the individuals themselves when they have their cameras on. Room number 2 is going to be Elaine, Harriet, Lisa, Mary, and Susan Moore. That's room number 2. And I am going to have you brainstorm on the distractions that come from outside, the children, the pets, the police sirens, etc. All right, so that is room 2, Elaine, Harriet, Lisa, Mary, and Susan Moore. In room 3, we have Amanda, Mina, and Sarah. And I'm going to let you brainstorm on the protecting privacy. Come up with a solution that you have there. That's room 3, Amanda, Mina, and Sarah. And then we have 2 more rooms. Room 4, so if you haven't heard your name yet, you're in one of these 2 rooms. Room 4 is Drew, Kelly, Love, and Mandy. And I am going to have you brainstorm on the challenge of the poor quality of service, the bandwidth issues. Come up with a solution there. I know that's going to be a little more challenging one, but I know you can do it. And then, so that's room 4, Drew, Kelly, Love, and Mandy. And then room 5 is anyone I have not called yet, Angela Jidong. And please forget, if I said that incorrectly, please come on and correct me. And Susan Couch, you are all room 5. There's 3 of you there. And I am going to have you brainstorm on the challenge of not seeing what, well, no, actually scratch that because we're given a very practical solution for that. Let's have you brainstorm on the challenge of understanding how to use the technology tools. All right, understanding, training, how to use the technology. So that's room 5. All right, so I am going to give you about 5 to 7 minutes to brainstorm as a group. I will send a little announcement letting you know when the rooms are almost ready to close. And then once I close the breakout rooms, you'll still have a full 60 seconds to make it back here to the main room. All right, so I'm about to open the breakout rooms and I can't wait to hear what you all come up with for your solutions. And the rooms are open now.
by the way, Rachel, before everybody gets back, thanks for giving us the impossible task. Okay.
I
with
know.
it was actually good. I liked it. I liked having the more challenging one, but it's definitely like, this one's a little bit trickier.
Yes, yes. I felt that your group was up for the challenge. I could sense it. You're very welcome. All right, welcome back, everyone. I think we have everyone back from our breakout groups, and I am sure there were some good discussions. I know Drew's group appreciated being given the most difficult one, it seems like. So we will come to your group. So hopefully you chose a representative for each group. We're just going to go through each group. So group number 1, who was coming up with a practical solution for the challenges of cameras on, from the people themselves on camera. Room 1, who's your representative and what is your solution?
I'm Tara Johnson with Aiken Technical College, and I'm going to speak on that matter. We spoke on the different challenges we've had with the online meetings and classrooms. And one of the solutions were to, for the classroom setting, is to have an online virtual classroom tidbit on do's and don'ts. Dress appropriately. When you log in, mute your audio or microphone, and then we would have the presentation. Now, there was a question too where, well, what if someone does wear something inappropriate? And the solution for that is to email that one particular student one-on-one and let them know, hey, your dress wear was inappropriate and it was offensive to others. So when we go about the online tidbits, the do's and don'ts, tell them in a gentle manner, the dress rule, as if you were coming into the classroom itself. And as far as when they're talking about the meetings, pretty much the same thing. There should be a general list for the do's and don'ts and expectations of the virtual meeting or the virtual classrooms. And that was all that we had.
Oh, that's great, Tara. Thank you for sharing that from your group, and such good solution that encompasses so many smaller things that you can cover all in that do's and don'ts. Great, great. All right, so we'll continue on. Room number 2, who is your spokesperson and what was your solution? Room number 2, anybody, did you choose anyone to be your spokesperson?
I'll jump in and speak for us. I
Okay,
see
Mary.
one of my members has to leave. So
Okay.
ours is very similar to the earlier distractions, clothing, sleeping, pets, children, police, all of those things are sort of extraneous difficulties. The two things we really focused on were, one, setting expectations for behavior. Okay. Like others have said, make sure your students know what the expectations are in this virtual room. But one of the other things that we all agreed on, and I didn't pick this wording, but I really liked it, was we need to be the standard bearers. We need to demonstrate. So I have been we all discussed, we've been in meetings with fellow faculty or leadership where they're sitting in their bed watching, you can see the pillow and the headboard, or they're walking around as they prepare dinner, or they're sitting in their car. And so those things don't set the modeling that we want to achieve. The other thing is, and this is response to the first group, as the leader and the host, you can mute anyone both visually or through the microphone. So if you have a student who is behaving inappropriately or just dressed inappropriately, but behavior is fine, you can always turn their camera off and not allow them to turn it back on. So that's a solution to a problem if they do come dressed inappropriately or are doing distracting behaviors. Sometimes you may have to turn that camera off for them.
Great, thank you, Mary. And I love the emphasis on modeling. It's basically taking the same thing we would do in a face-to-face classroom and transferring that to the virtual setting. I taught public speaking for years, and I made sure that I was modeling my expectations for my students. My cell phone went on silent and it was put away in my bag. I did not have it out. I was not checking it while someone was speaking. Again, that same idea there, showing them what it looks like. So those are great solutions from both groups 1 and 2. Right now, group three, you only had 3 people in your group, but who is your representative who's going to share your solution with us?
I can do it.
Okay. Go ahead, Amanda.
So we were focused on addressing privacy issues. And one of the first things our group had to do was define what we meant by privacy. So we came at it from a couple different angles. First, we looked at it from the angle of privacy of like responses to survey questions and things like that, or the information that or responses the students gave. The second angle we looked at it from was privacy in terms of their personal lives, environment, that kind of stuff. So what we talked about for privacy in terms of student responses, like not calling out specific students for giving a certain answer, was trying different survey programs, sort of experimenting with different survey programs and using one that allowed us to make it more anonymous for privacy. We also talked a bit about screening our recordings before we posted them to make sure, you know, what's being shown, because I think there are some systems where before you post it, you can maybe edit a little bit. Yeah. In terms of protecting students' privacy, in terms of the information they share and their environment, some of the strategies we came up with were being very transparent about when things are being recorded, right? Like giving a warning, okay, I'm recording now. Giving little reminders, hey, make sure your mics are muted, right? Just make them more cognizant and aware, because a lot of the privacy issues we've encountered through that angle have come from students who are unintentionally talking or sharing something else, not realizing that the entire class has listened in. So a lot of us have used that sort of mute everybody feature, like that emergency, like, okay, mics off feature. So those are some of the things we came up with.
I think those are great. Thank you, Amanda, and the rest of group 3 for that. That was really very thoughtful and thorough in addressing the potential areas of that problem. And I saw Mary indicated in the chat, yeah, with the recordings especially, double checking your recording before you post it, because there are FERPA issues. I know we started a teaching tidbits series here at Greenville Tech, and one of the instructors who I had do a video or an episode shared a tool she used within her classes, and it wasn't until after the recording we had to go back in and blur out all the students' names because we hadn't realized that they were actual student names. So we couldn't put that out for others to view until we got all of those blurred. So we learned a valuable lesson from that in prepping for future videos. But yes, what some great ideas there as well. And I know, and I will say this, if you're using a tool like Zoom, and Zoom specifically, Within the meeting itself, you can share poll results, but it does not connect to the individuals who made the choices. However, after the meeting, you can go download a report of the polls that does indicate who answered what, if you need that for records or for grading or something. Now, some of the other virtual meeting platforms may not do that in the same way, but in the experiences we've had with Zoom, that is one thing you don't have to worry about too much. All right, we have two other
Rachel,
groups.
I have a
Yes,
question
go ahead, Mary.
about what you just said. With the Zoom polls, as long as they've registered, it records who. But if you set that poll to anonymous, it does not track it, or it still tracks it?
It still tracks it.
I thought if it was set to anonymous, you could not see which participant actually responded.
Actually, you may be right. I might
Because there
have
are
to go
two
back and
settings. There are two
Yes.
settings. One is you set it to anonymous and then it doesn't. But that's one reason we require registration, is so that we can track when we want to use it as formative feedback as opposed to, anonymous polls. So I'm curious about that.
I think you're right. I would have to go back and double check that, because I know it always keeps it anonymous within the meeting itself. And if you don't have them register and you don't have it set to anonymous, sometimes depending on how they join, you might not actually know who it is. So the registration is a good idea. And I think to that, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think you're probably right, Mary, and I just always leave it. For our purposes, I always leave it set to record whoever's in the meeting. But that's actually a great point that you bring up, Mary, just for an added layer of precaution. If it's not integrated with your learning management system, Zoom is integrated into our Blackboard, to do something like a registration to help you better control. Yeah, that's a great point, Mary. Thank you. All right, we have two other groups. I don't want to leave you out. And I know group 4 has been so anxiously awaiting because they had the best challenge to consider. So group 4 was considering, of course, the poor quality of internet and bandwidth issues. So group 4, what did you come up with?
Yeah, I was sort of the note taker for group 4, so I'll chime in for us. So we had the bandwidth solutions, kind of the internet. A couple of those were ones that I think many of us have probably encountered and used. So keeping the videos off. I remember when we first started, they kind of told everybody, keep the videos off, make sure. And then it was, I'm sure you all had that wonderful, trauma experience of dealing with nothing but black screens and not seeing anybody's faces and not knowing if anyone is actually there, just teaching into the void. But it's, in some cases it is necessary. Also, the using of the backdrops. So that's one thing I do. I'm actually going to borrow your idea, Rachel, with the map. I pick my backgrounds sometimes based off of current events, and different things. But I also will let the students. I'll ask them, where do you want to go today? And if it's Tokyo, I'll very quickly just do a Google search and save the image and then use it as a backdrop. But using the virtual backdrops, I try to teach my students how to use that as well. So somebody was saying, does it increase it, Mary? I thought it decreased it. It always says decreased it. Oh, well, maybe I'm doing it wrong. But there's the call-in feature, also making that accessible to students and letting them know how to use it, and reminding them and providing tutorials was another idea. At MTC, I teach at MTC, and so we have a arrangement with the bus service, so that basically students can ride the bus for free and they can come to campus. So if they're having Wi-Fi issues, they can come here. I had a colleague also that had, I think, 4 kids online at the same time, along with her teaching classes. And so she actually was able to get a Wi-Fi booster. So she called the cable company, and I don't think they charged her for it. And so they were able to do like a Wi-Fi booster, so that maybe it's not like to make it better, but to improve the coverage in the house, that type of thing, based off of their usage. And then of course, the other aspect, which is a little more outside the box, but advocating for more broadband. So hopefully with the new infrastructure bill that's being discussed and partial agreements on right now, they will have, one of the big parts of that is additional money for infrastructure for broadband and make it more accessible, particularly in rural areas. So you can kind of advocate for that as well, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely threw you a challenge, group 4 there, but I think you rose to the challenge, came up with some really great suggestions. And obviously that challenge, there are certain things that are beyond our control to be able, but we can be thinking about, even things like making the recordings available at a later date for them, or tools for them in case they miss out because of that. So those were some great suggestions there with a very challenging topic. All right, group 5, I did not want to leave you out, and you were focusing in on just not knowing the technology, figuring out how to use it. What kind of solution did you come up with?
This is Angela. I was duly nominated to be our spokes person. We ran the gamut from relying heavily on the IT department for their knowledge to one of our groups said that they had a podcast, a weekly 15-minute that covered a different piece of technology, whether it was Kahoot or, using an editing software or something, and that the person that was being interviewed, it was faculty that was being interviewed on the podcast, was the point of contact. And I can say that from my particular school, we quickly found out who had what skills and asked them to expand those skills and be the point of contact for anybody that had questions about that particular thing. So, when Mary knew a lot about Zoom and D2L, and we could go to her for that. And then somebody else in the Center for Teaching Excellence had experience with the Mentimeter and those kinds of things. And so you didn't have to go out and learn it all on your own. You just had to know who the person was that could give you the express route. And then there was a lot of, after we were already out there and teaching, there was a lot of information made available. If somebody found a website or something, they would share that. So there were a lot of different ways to overcome that challenge.
Yes. Great. You gave us several different options there, Angela, and group 5. So thank you all for sharing that with us. I noticed in the chat earlier, so one, you all embraced that challenge and your solutions well. I also noticed in the chat earlier just some discussion about everybody just jumping in and figuring it out, and just kudos all around. So for those of you who have your cameras on, we're going to do something. Just bear with me, okay? For those of you who have cameras on, I want you to take your hands like this. All right, let me see. All right. And on the count of 3, we're going to just high five the people next to us. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was pretty good. Let's try it one more time. All right. Really put some effort into it. Like, this is a high five. You did a great job. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yes, very nice. Very nice. I love it. All right, I want to do a quick check-in before we come to a chance for you to do some reflection. And so this check-in is something I call the 40-second blah, blah, blah. I cannot take ownership for it. It is something I found in researching. So obviously we have a bunch of people in here, and we do not have time for every single person to do a 40-second blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to call on a couple of people, all right? I will give you a moment, but here's how the 40-second blah, blah, blah works. I will give you 40 seconds to share what's currently on your mind regarding our meeting and our topic. Whatever is on your mind, you have 40 seconds, and you just keep talking until that 40 seconds is up. And I'm going to tell you how I'm going to let you know your 40 seconds is up. I have my handy little meditation bowl, so you will just hear All right, that'll let you know. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about it. I am going to ask for, let's see, I'm going to choose 3 people. And I know people are saying, please don't choose me. Please don't choose me. Please don't choose me. I am going to ask, let's see, Catherine, I see you smiling. I'm going to ask you. Let's see. Second, I'm going to ask, let's see here. Mandy smiled. Okay, good. And then third, I will ask Whitney. If she, and I got a smile. Okay, so I'm taking those smiles as a good thing. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think quickly here before we start in on your 40-second blah, blah, blah. And then we'll go, I have set you in order, Catherine, then Mandy, and then Whitney. All right, so you'll just unmute and you'll get a chance to just talk for 40 seconds, whatever is on your mind. Are you ready, Catherine?
I am.
All right, well, your 40 seconds starts now.
Well, thank you. This is, teaching is such a challenge, but it's so much fun. And the thing that makes it fun to me is the relationships with students. And that's such a challenge with this technology barrier kind of thing. But the ideas that have been presented today really do break down a lot of those barriers. And that's what I think the real challenge is. And there's always a challenge with teaching. So that's what keeps me going. And the websites that have been mentioned today, the ideas that y'all have shared, the idea that I'm not the only one who's having trouble doing this, and it's nice to know. It's kind of therapeutic, but the idea that there is hope and there is help out there keeps you going. And it's kind of like a treasure hunt to keep finding good things and these nuggets that you find and then try them on the students and they work. That's so gratifying. So thank you very much for sharing such great things and ideas and giving us some hope about overcoming some of these things we're dealing with.
Great. Thank you, Catherine, for sharing. I love that. And I'm seeing a lot of sharing going on in the chat, and I think that's wonderful. All right, Mandy, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, your 40-second blah, blah, blah starts now.
Well, going along with what Catherine was saying, which we know her as Kitty, but I love the sharing aspects of everything. I love to share. So I love that we can have these moments to get together, to share ideas, to share challenges that we've had, and to find those solutions in each other, because I believe that I don't know everything and I'm always asking others for their ideas or what they think about something. And I think we naturally do that as teachers. We seek out that knowledge and seek out to, find what other people know that we may not.
I love that. Perfect. Thank you, Mandy. That was great. All right. One more 40-second blah, blah, blah. And Whitney, Whitney has done a lot of speaking today, and I just remembered that. So thank you, Whitney, for being a good sport. If you are ready, your 40-second blah, blah, blah starts now.
Well, I was very interested to hear about the podcast that was mentioned and sharing ideas that way, because I work with Rachel and she does like she said, the videos, the teaching tidbits, and we share that every week. And I thought the podcast was a great idea if we could figure out how to share, how to do that at Greenville Tech. I think that would be really cool. So we need to get with who was it that mentioned that? We need to get with them and figure out how to do that, Rachel. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm taking away from this session. Well, that and many other things.
Oh, there we go. Oh, yes, great. I am a lover of podcasts, and figuring out how to not only a video series, but a podcast here, I'm all in. We'll figure that out. Or we'll take the video series and we'll make it into a podcast as well or something. Great. Thank you to the 3 of you who were so gracious to let me volunteer you for the 40-second blah, blah, blah. If we had all afternoon, everyone would get the opportunity, but obviously we don't have all afternoon. And I want to give you an opportunity to do a little bit of reflecting and thinking this afternoon on all that you have experienced, because I have immersed you in a lot of different things throughout our session so far today. So I want to give you a chance to do a little bit of reflection here. So I'm going to give you about 3 to 5 minutes. And I want you to, and for this particular application, I want you to just reflect on the tools, the techniques that you've experienced, and just write some things down. It can be a bulleted list, it can be a paragraph. And I'm going to have you go ahead and just turn your camera off while you reflect, so all your attention can be solely on your reflection. When time is up, I'll let you know. We'll do cameras back on and kind of do a debrief and wrap up. So I'm going to give you some time just to reflect a little bit on what you have experienced today. actually, I'm gonna pause it there. That was the perfect cutoff to the music. And you may still be thinking a little bit, that's okay. Before I kind of draw some general wrap up, if anyone wants to quickly share any observations or reflections they have from what they've experienced today, I'd love to hear anything that has kind of stuck out to you or that you've noticed in your experience. We can take just a minute or so. Any observations or anything you want to share? No pressure, you don't have to, but if you'd like to.
I think the biggest thing that I've gotten out of today is how important it is to have a support system and to collaborate with each other, because I think part of what can make challenges we may face while we're teaching virtually even worse is feeling like we're alone in it, right? Like, oh my gosh, why can't I get this? What? And just even hearing someone else say, yeah, I've experienced that issue too, it makes you feel like you've got other people on your team.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Amanda. I definitely, when you feel like you're not alone, it gives you something extra. Yeah. Good. Anybody else? Yeah, Mary.
I was thinking about, and this is true every time I participate in one of these, I look at what we share in here, the tools you've shared. Somebody shared that wheel tool, other tools. There are a million websites out there for teachers helping teachers in K through 12 and all these amazing techniques and things. How do we do something like that in higher ed?
Yeah.
Where do we go to share these things and how we're using them in our classrooms? Because it is different. And, you know, it's kind of hard sometimes to abstract from that K through 12 environment to the higher ed environment. And once you've done it, though, it's amazing. So how do we create? I mean, this is right now we have 16 colleges, you know, that could have participated today. How do we continue to grow in this and start creating resources where we can all do this and actually help other college instructors?
Yeah, that's such a good point, Mary. And of course, I don't have the answer, but I say, let's all figure out how we do that because I agree with you, definitely. When you look out there for resources, it's a lot of K through 12. If you're on Pinterest at all, looking for anything, it's all K through 12. So yeah, we need to figure that out because it's places like this that I end up finding some of my ideas, but a lot of times you have to go digging for it. So the great observation, Mary. Well, I'd like to continue, but I do want to make sure I wrap us up a little bit. And so my hope is that during your reflection, I kind of wanted to summarize all of the different tools or techniques that we utilized in some way today. Now, we didn't use the waiting room. However, in certain virtual meeting technologies, that is a possibility and it can come in handy. Especially in Zoom, there's also the ability to message the people who are in the waiting room. So that interaction is still possible even when they haven't entered the actual session yet. But we utilized the chat box. We made sure everybody's first and last name was visible. And if possible, videos on, sometimes videos off. I think that's been part of the discussion today. Videos on isn't always better. So at the end there, having you turn your videos off while you did your reflection. So there can be a give and take with having videos turned on and videos turned off. Utilizing the mics. Sometimes it is so much easier to be able to just verbally say your answer or what's on your mind than to try to figure out how to type it out in the chat. So that balance between being able to use the chat box, but being able to have the mic as an option when it's easier to express it than to type it is wonderful. One of the things I made sure to do is, as the facilitator, keep my video on the whole time so that I'm there. I'm as present as I can be without reaching into the screen to be there. There's vocal expression, same thing you would use in a face-to-face classroom. Another thing we did was what I would call active roll call, but just simply calling participants by their name, reading out their response from the chat. You know, again, there may be some, if you're going to do a recording with students, there may be some considerations privacy wise there, but when it's when that's a possibility, the ability to do that, there's something about that recognition and them acknowledging you by name, not just another participant in the class, that goes such a long way with students. Polling, and of course there's the in virtual meeting platform polling, but again, there's also the other outside polling options, Poll Everywhere, Mentimeter, even games like Kahoot, which is also an app. Using the annotation tool and the whiteboard, the screen share, so you have access to music and video and apps and documents and pictures. And then of course, your breakout rooms for your small groups, for your parent shares. So it's about kind of taking all the elements that you would have used in a face-to-face and how can I still make some of that happen even though we're in the virtual environment. So we've looked at a lot today. And we won't pause to do this, but I do want to just challenge you to think about all that you've experienced today and just make a commitment to try one new tool or technique. Write down what that tool or technique is that you're going to try out in an upcoming meeting or workshop or class. To see how it works. And I say one because it could be overwhelming to try and do all at once. But before I wrap it up, I wanted to check and see if there were any lingering questions that I can answer for you. If not, I will bring it to a close, but I wanted to pause for just a second. Any final questions? Okay. All right. Again, I challenge you to do just a final reflection before you walk away from all that you're taking in today in the summit, and get back into the busyness of life because it is a whirlwind, and just make a commitment to trying one new engagement tool or technique, whether that's in a Zoom meeting or another virtual platform, because we've looked at a lot of different ways to create engagement in our meetings. And I would encourage you with this, follow this first rule, keep it simple. The challenge with all of this is, oh, I can do a lot of cool things, but keep it simple. Remember the simple basics, like turning on your camera, making eye contact as you can, using your voice expressively, calling people by name. Then add in some of the others based on your desired outcome. Does polling work the best for that? Do breakout rooms work the best for that? What about screen share? Would this video be really great for them to see? You can create engagement in virtual meetings just as you would, or close to as you would in-person meetings. All it takes is thinking about your objectives, making a plan ahead of time so you can test out whether it'll actually work, and a willingness to think outside the box on what is possible. So know your goal, make a plan, and then get creative.